And then they'll come in your house and, the garage door's open. They're like, oh, let's go. Garage door's open and run in and they'll be able to find dog food or warmth. And people don't even know when they've invaded the house until it's too late because they're so sneaky.
You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Downloadable audio episodes can be found in the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie, Calls on Call Extraordinary Answering Service, as well as the Bold Business Book. And today we're welcoming / preparing to learn from Kari Warberg Block, the founder of EarthKind. And Kari, I am excited to talk to you because you are venturing into an area of business that I didn't even know existed. So I'll just have you tell the people what EarthKind is, and we'll get this party started.
Well, great. I'm happy to be here with you and appreciate everything here. I'd love to share this story. We're an innovator in the category of pest control. Before my company came along, 98% of everything sold to control a pest was a poison or a kill method. Being a mom, having kids, having pets, that didn't sit so well with me when it was my job to control pests on our farm. So I invented a brand new way to control pests that would basically deter them rather than lure them in, kill them, and have to clean them up. So it had never been done before, successfully anyway. So we were the first to do it. That was 18 years. We just kind of like an adult now. I guess the company's an adult. We're in about 35,000 stores. We're in almost all cities across the country. You can find our products under two brands. Fresh Cab is a brand, Stay Away is a brand. We sell into rural, we sell into urban, we sell into the government space. Um, yeah,
Man,
that's what we do. So the product, basically, what it is it's almost like an old-fashioned sachet. And on the farm, I just wanted something simple that would keep pests out of my stuff. And it turned out the magic ingredients was really the botanicals that went inside that are grown on farms. So you place our little pouches in, and pests leave, and people have come to depend on them.
well, that is cool. I can tell you, we had a mouse problem in our house on the past couple years, and I went to war. And we're talking the simple mouse traps with little peanut butter and stuff like that, and mothballs, and the sticky traps, and the green blocks. And I remember looking, I think I was looking specifically at the green blocks, that's a poison. And I
Mhm.
was trying to figure out what is actually in this stuff. And those are some of the longest words I've ever seen. And just typing those into a search engine,
Yeah.
there's a lot of X's and Z's, and just trying to go and dig and figure out what is it that I just bought and who came up with this stuff. So can you tell me why, or just I guess the history, if you know it, of the poison and why the
Sure.
market seems to be more of a poison and kill rather than a deter kind of
Yeah,
thing?
well, the easy answer is people want to get rid of the pest. They want to do it in the fastest and the cheapest way possible. So that lends itself really well to some type of a chemical where you kill the thing. Um, it's just very commonly used, and people have become to make it a habit. They see something, they step on it, and they kill it. They don't really think about the what that pest does for the environment, so to speak. On a
Mm-hmm.
farm, I saw that. I was thinking about that. On the farm, if I would have used poison, I could have had lost our dog, could have lost an eagle, which would eat the rodent. So the downstream effects of using that poison didn't sit well with me. I also had the great fortune of growing up with an entomologist. My dad was a specialist in rodents. And even though I took this business out to the world after he had already, passed on to his next world, it was quite an experience growing up with an entomologist. I saw trials. I saw all kinds of bugs and insects and rodents and you name it in little cages, some right next door to my bedroom. Kind of freaked me out. I never wanted to be near them. I never wanted to see them. I never wanted to touch them. I never wanted to deal with them. And he loved the things, but yet he made all his money by killing them. And there was
Oh,
this rub because, I'd say, why do you have to kill him? I thought you loved him. He's like, well, that's the business model. That's how it is. And so it was only natural for me to ask the same question. Why do we just have to kill them? Why can't there be a non-confrontational, peaceful way to do it that was effective? And so that's really what I brought to market. It really just started in my heart, wanting to solve a problem for another lady just like me on the farm that's probably getting her butt chewed out because she didn't protect the equipment and it's all full of mice now and messy um, and a funny side story to that, when the product first got onto the market, we were known as having a product that saved marriages.
oh
And I'm so
wow.
proud of that because the problem is painful. It's just, you seems like no matter what you do, you can't get rid of the darn things. And it's, it is the hardest to control pest that there is. And they're very, very adaptable. They're smart. They can get in through like the size of a dime. But what's kind of scary about it, and you probably saw these stats and, wanted to make sure you got a solution that could really, truly get rid of them for your family, is because 8% of all household fires are attributed to rodents chewing on wiring. Some
Really?
experts say it's up to 20%. Yeah, 6,000 dogs, according to ASPCA, die each year ingesting rodents that have eaten some type of a poison.
Wow.
The
All right.
list goes on and on and on. So rodents are nothing to mess with. So taking this task on was pretty monumental because nobody had ever done it before. Taking a botanical alternative to control a public health risk pest.
Yeah.
So I had to take it all the way to the federal EPA. I had to work on policy. It had to get licensed in all 50 states, twice at the federal level. Um, and coming from somebody who had no background, I wasn't an entomologist. My dad was, but he was dead. I didn't have any experience in the industry, wasn't a PhD, didn't have any experience really developing products. So I've had to learn all of these things along the way to get the business to where it is today, to make life a little easier for people like you that have that horrible problem and really don't
Yeah.
want to use something dangerous that they can't read the label of, but they didn't have a choice until we came along.
Yeah, I remember going through the home improvement store. You're just looking at the shelving that they
Yeah.
have with all the options, and it's chemicals. It's just a bunch of chemicals with big words. It's interesting you mentioned how smart rodents are. I had another mouse problem. We're talking probably 10 years ago, something like that. And I learned about the little sticky pad things. And I thought this is super easy. There's some construction happening in an office building that we were at. And I suppose through construction, they had holes that were way bigger than a dime that mice were probably just like, yeah, this is a new vacation home. Let's do it. And I found mouse poop on my desk. And I'm like, okay, that's no good.
Mm,
So I got a
yeah.
little sticky pad thing. And I thought the best thing to do, even though it says not to, is to put a little bait in the middle of it. And I come back the next day and I happen to have a clothespin on my desk. And the mouse had put the clothespin over the sticky pad and eaten the bait in the middle. And I was so amazed that a rodent would know. I mean, the clothespin was right by there, but still, oh my gosh. I'm like, man, we could probably have these guys cure cancer if we could figure out how they talk. It seems
It's
so brilliant.
They
Uh,
really are, and that's kind of the secret to what we do. I figured out how they talk. Each different
oh,
pest is a different, so um, yeah, it's kind of a different approach. But scientists have been working with rodents for, I mean, they sniff out dead bodies. They can sniff out bombs. They can drive cars if you teach them. They're just, it's really amazing. They can become pets for kids and clean and yet when provoked and when in a tough environment, they can become the most difficult things you can imagine, like in New York City and carrying disease and just nothing to mess with.
Yeah, I remember walking down the streets in Boston and learning that there are just rats that roam around. The first time you see one, you're like, "Whoa, what is that thing?" And
Mm-hmm.
then you see many of them. Tell me,
Yeah.
18 years ago when you first started, what was going through your head? Were you just like, "Hey, this is going to be a hobby just for my farm," or was it, "Hey, I got to start a business on this"?
Well, it started just as, oh, I needed the solution. I called everybody, all the other companies out there, and said, "Do you have something that's a little less toxic that, we can use?" And they pretty much, I hit no's across the board. There was nothing was in development. But to make matters worse, they kind of made fun of me. And it was, lady, just buy some poison and be done with it.
Wow.
And they used terms like, come on, it's a war on pests. And using words like that, um, trying to dish me to get some poisons. And I'm like, you're not hearing me. And so there was this insult, and I just thought, hey, maybe I could do something like this. I hadn't even remembered that, my dad had experienced doing this. None of those things had started. The first thing was like, I got to get rid of these things. They were crawling up my legs. They were ruining our equipment. They were chewing on wires. It was, I'll tell you about the last two straws. It
All
was
right.
bad. And it was like, okay, I'm going to commit myself to doing something, or I am probably going to go insane because they were driving, it was that bad. So I had started a greenhouse on my farm. I had a 2 acre organic garden, and I was selling produce in the summertime to stores and other people, and nobody had organic produce. We did. We had 1,100 acre small grain regenerative farm out in western North Dakota. And so I built this great little niche that paid really good money in cash. And this ended up funding the growth of the company, actually. But I'd grow tomato plants where by July 4th, you could have a great little tomato. That's
Wow.
unheard of in North Dakota. So I was built these little green twos and putting these nice little plants in, making my own little greenhouses. And anyway, I went out one morning and 400 of my crop, I had just gotten them to a 4-leaf stage, transplanted them the day before, and all eaten off by mice.
Oh no.
And I was just like, okay, well, there just went all this money, that I had planned on. And I had to start these things in January. So it was like, I can't start over. It's too late now. And I really had a tantrum. There was some tears. I was like, there's some swear. It was not good. So I go in the house, I take a shower. I'm like, okay, Carrie, I'll go upstairs. And I pulled out my underwear drawer and there was droppings in there.
Oh no.
And it was, okay, it was like that unavoidable. It was almost like there was a higher power up there saying, no, 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 you're going to do something about this because it was that insane.
How many times do we have to give you the clues,
Oh
right?
yeah, it was over and over and over again. The first time I was out on the farm actually, and I knew how to drive truck before I was out there because I used to run a trucking company. Anyway, so I'm like, well, I'll impress this guy, so you need to take anything to town. And he, I jumped in one truck, he jumped in another, and out of the ceiling came mice, and
Plural?
yeah, like it just the whole the headliner in the truck is like an old 48, grain truck. It opened up as I took off, and then mice poured out of it,
Oh,
landed
nasty.
on me, and they were up my legs, they're in my crotch. It was like the freakiest, dirtiest, ickiest thing I can ever imagine. And just instinctively, I looked around and I had my purse with me. This was a date, so I was like wanting to smell good. So I had perfume in there. And
Ah,
I was like, shh. And they actually ran out. And
oh,
so that kind of gave me my first hint of like, I wasn't thinking of anything. I was just thinking of like raid or something. I need to spray them with something. And that ended up being kind of my secret key is maybe I can control them by some type of sensory aroma. And so that's what it ended up happening.
all right. So where did you start? Because I imagine you're like, okay, got to get some stuff that's got some olfactory things here. Do you
Yeah.
start with something that stinks, or do you start with something strong like mint, or where do you start?
Yeah, so I started with mint because there was already this old wives' tale. Well, you use mint, it's going to work for mice. It did not work. And so I'm like cooking up this thing going, oh, I can make all this money because we can grow mint. I was already growing spearmint. And for, I can't remember the company, but I was growing herbs and selling them be used in food. And it just didn't work. And it never lasted more than 10 days. So I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to work. And then I used rose oil, which rose oil worked, but I got such a terrible headache from it. It was a strong smell. And then one day I'm out walking in the snow, um, in the tree rows, and I see this. It was one of those bad winters where there's like 40 inches of snow and the wildlife are starving. And so they start eating bark off the trees. And I saw this tree that had no bark on, and the other trees did, and there was no rodent droppings near it, no deer tracks near it. Like, isn't that interesting? I put two and two together and I thought, maybe there's something to maybe the fir tree makes its own repellent for some reason against these, critters. So I ordered myself up some oil and grabbed some bark and soaked it, and that worked.
So how, tell me about the experiment to figure out if it works. You get a pile of mice and lay the
No,
bark in.
well, yeah, I had a steady stream of them being on the farm, so it didn't matter the day. We had grain bins full of grain. There's just mice around a farm, all over. So it was just a constant assault when you're out there. So you need to have something to protect them. So I just put different things in different vehicles. We had farm trucks, we had, yeah, grain trucks, we had a combine, we had our vehicles. Well, all kinds of stuff. A camper, a tack room with the horse tack.
All
So
right.
there's never a shortage of places to test. And the balsam fir ended up being the winner. So it has a molecule that mice find offensive, but nothing else does. Pets don't find it offensive. It's not allergic to anything else. And with the research, here's the interesting thing that I found out about it was monarch butterflies nest and live in the balsam fir trees.
Oh, wow.
So the only predator to a monarch, they have two, and that's it. One is a yellow oriole, which, they have to be making their migration to get eaten that way. The other is a mouse.
Oh, really?
So the mice crawl up the trees and try to eat them, and they find them, a delicacy. So the mouse is like so resilient. No other creature wants to eat the monarchs. They
Oh,
find them,
interesting.
they get sick from it. The same thing as the milkweed that the babies are reared up on. It's toxic to all other wildlife. So it was like,
Huh.
wow, nature. So there's a lot of answers in nature if we take the time to observe, when you're looking at solutions. And Native American people always said that. If you have a problem, there's always a solution within your reach. And so that
Nice.
kept playing in my head, going, okay, well, universe, show me the solution because I'm kind of running up on, a dead end here.
Yeah. So you got the balsam fir stuff. And so how, when you first started, how did you distribute that? Was it in little bags? Do you sprinkle it places?
Yeah, so this is what it looks like now. It's little sachet about the size of a hand, a small hand. It's got a little topper on it, and it's a breathable pouch. And you place this wherever you want to keep the mice out, and it'll keep them out for a month. Some people use it for up to 3 months. It all depends on the air exchange in the area. But in the beginning, we had a lot of different iterations of that. It started out just soaked pine cones because that's what I was thinking. I can't strip bark off, but I'll take pine cones, right, and soak them in the oil. And so in the beginning, I had like 4-Hers and neighbor kids out in tree rows picking pine cones,
Oh, fun.
delivering them to my farm. And because when the farmers saw it, they're like, oh my gosh, I need that. I need that. I need that. So I started supplying all of our neighbors, and then it grew from there. And companies started asking me to make them for Christmas gifts so that they could give them to farmers. And after that, then it was okay, well, I better get a grant because this really isn't sustainable. I've pretty much stripped 2 counties of every of every single pine cone that's sitting out here. So then I switched to using like plant fiber, and it's the inside of corn cobs, which is used in the potpourri industry to absorb oils and fragrances, and then it helps to kind of slow release it. So I said, oh, well, that's good. It's a farm product again. It's sustainable. It's something that we could grow and use. Um, and I started using that, and it worked. And then it was, we went through the whole, we had to get it automated, and then we had to get it distributed. And yeah, it was all just basically, one step at a time because it had never been done before. So basically I had to create a new process and a new system for everything, every step along the way.
So tell
Yeah.
me, when you, at this point, you're figuring out, okay, this is how we are going to make the product. Is this, I don't know how the rodent, or I guess what would you call this?
It's a
It's not
repellent.
repellent, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know how the repellent industry works exactly, but I have interviewed other people in the supplement industry, and the supplement, it kind of seems to be Wild West to a point, even now, where you can just say, like, hey, this does some stuff. FDA doesn't say it does this stuff. Slap it on the shelf and call it good. Is the rodent repellent industry more or less the same thing, where you can just be like, yeah, this does stuff?
No, no. In fact, I didn't really know any of that in the beginning. And I was at a trade show, and we had started to pick up some steam here. And the media came by, and they saw this huge group of people at my booth buying this stuff because the word had gotten out that, hey, this farm wife invented this stuff and it really works. You got to get some. So hundreds and hundreds of people drove to town to come to the show to buy it from me. So the news came over, they interviewed me, and um, the next morning there was a line like 2 blocks long. And this is North Dakota in the wintertime. So it was like below zero, probably. It was freezing, and people were waiting out in line to get this stuff before we sold out. And that
Wow.
was that moment I'm like, I told my kids, I'm like, oh, we're gonna be rich, you guys. Like, people are so, it was like, heaven. It was just amazing. I'm like, because I was happy because I knew how big of a problem it was. And I'm like, wow, I solved this problem and we can make a real business out of this. Well, at the end of that line was the pesticide police. And they
Oh,
said,
nice.
yeah, yeah. And they're like, did you know it's illegal to make these claims without a blankety blank, whatever? I'm like, what? This is like there's nothing in this except farm ingredients. It's safe, it's natural. We're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah,
I'm
didn't
like,
repel
well,
quite
if you're
everywhere.
making a claim, this, you have to have that license. I'm like, okay, well, tell me how to do that. So I then came down to the Department of Agriculture office Monday morning and sat down with them, and they did everything to discourage me from registering this because they're like, well, it's going to cost about 2 million. Chances of you getting it are next to nothing.
What?
And because it had never been done before, they're like, well, to do new protocols, to change anything with a big bureau, agency, people just don't do that.
Wow.
And they're like, you would think of like federal or like the FDA and herbal tinctures. You can't make those claims and sell it. I'm like, but I want to make the claims and I want it to be government, you know, licensed. And I think it's the right thing to do because pests are a public health risk pest.
Hmm.
I think I should go through these studies so I can tell people actually, yes, it works 9 out of 10 times. And we're the top rated product today. And now there's dozens of competitors, but we still have the most effective one. And we work with farmers and we do a lot of good things and we're a top place to work and all the other stuff that comes with delivering our product. But way back when they're like, yeah, it's probably not going to happen. So yeah, I went back to that conversation that I had when the pest companies were like laughing at me, calling me stupid, just use the poison, just use the poison. And I said, well, at least I have to try. So I sold my horse, my pack horse. I sold my 68 Pathfinder camper. Went and got some grants and just started the path and thought, well, one step at a time. And, by the grace of God, we got the first federal EPA registration for botanical rodent repellent.
So is that the most expensive thing? Was just getting essentially government approval to slap this
Yeah.
nature thing out there?
Yeah. Well, the most expensive thing was losing the marriage, I think,
Oh,
because yeah, when the business started to go and I said, this is my calling. I can't be the farmhand anymore. I really want your support. I've, busted my butt for a lot of years on this farm and I'd like some help. And he was like, "No, that's not my gig, really." I'm like,
ouch.
okay, yeah. So it was pretty amicable. And he's like, but you go, girl. So I still, miss being on the farm, but I had to make my choice there because I couldn't really do it from Western North Dakota, where the closest airport was like a 2-hour drive on gravel. And
All right. I was wondering because I know you're in North Carolina now, so I was trying to figure out like, are you commuting back and forth? Or
yeah, I'm in North Carolina now as the business grew. I ended up moving all of our factories down here after the textile mill was decimated. There's all this beautiful big buildings. We have a 400,000 square foot building we could move into. We retrofitted it. It was
400,000.
Yeah, we're in 100, little over 100,000 of it, and other tenants have the other spaces. But we were able to move in down here for a fourth the cost of what the warehouse space cost up north in the winter. We were able to turn our products so much faster. Like our customers, for instance, Lowe's is less than 5 minutes away. Um,
Nice.
you know, Depot's just a hop, skip, and a jump over in Atlanta, and Walmart's in Bentonville, so we can really get around from this location. It gets a little tough to get out to LA for sure, but
Sure.
since all the ingredients are grown on farms, what we were doing before is we had to get everything growing, then you ship it in, we convert all the stuff, and then we have to ship out to customers. And the turnaround time was just sometimes it would take 10 days.
Okay.
And in North Carolina, we can, go through the whole cycle in half that.
Wow. Okay, that's impressive.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that there's no rodent problem in your manufacturing.
No, It's kind of funny because there's a business next door to us and they have concessions and they do race cars, like miniature race cars, because we live in NASCAR country and it's all about racing here where we live. And so there's this little mini race car place and they have concessions. And when we moved in, it was so funny because they're like, well, I don't know what's going on, but we're like we're seeing more rodents and we're seeing snakes and we're seeing all this stuff. I'm like, that's because they're not in our factory anymore.
They're
Because it,
escaping out.
yeah, it was vacant, so they had kind of moved in and
Oh.
people had, storing stuff there, and so it just drove them all over them. And we're like, don't worry, we got you covered. Just buy our stuff. So that's the like the downfall with our product because it doesn't eliminate them, but it moves them out. But the good part of it is once you use our product, the pests themselves leave a pheromone trail to the other ones and say, don't go here. So it helps in controlling the next ones as well.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
part of their communication.
All
It
right.
doesn't last though, because like once the product is kind of lived its shelf life, it's like nature forgets and comes back in. So that's, a built-in replacement, I guess.
All right. So the other option is to just plant a bunch of fir trees around.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There's a lot of things people can do, and our website is just a wealth of information. We have probably the most extensive library out there of help because we started writing helpful blogs and content many, many years ago. And like, here's all the things you can do, for instance, keep your wood pile 20 feet away because
From the building.
oftentimes, yes, 20 feet away from the house, because oftentimes they'll live in there and then they'll come in your house and, the garage door's open. They're like, oh, let's go. Garage door's open and run in and they'll be able to find dog food or warmth. And people don't even know when they've invaded the house until it's too late because they're so sneaky. They can get in like on your house, like if any kind of a wire leading in upstairs, say in an attic to for electricity, they can get in there. They can get in a crack.
I
They're
remember looking at a buddy of mine just redid the interior of his garage. It was small farmette, and he had so it's probably I don't know 60 by 40 garage barn type thing. And he was tearing down the drywall because he was going to re-insulate. And he was talking about how he wanted to get the spray foam insulation instead of the regular fiberglass insulation because the mice were in the walls. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he takes down the drywall and you could see the little trails that the mice had been in the walls. And I had no idea that was even a thing. Because in my
um,
mind, the mice are going to chase after food. And I don't think there's any food in walls, or there shouldn't be. But it wasn't even one or two. It was a maze.
yeah. So the reason for that is because mice generally will make a nest, have their babies and that within about 20 feet of where they're going to find their food.
All right.
So that's kind of their core area that they're going to live in. So, for instance, if they come out at night and grab dog food or crumbs or whatever it is that, people are leaving behind, they'll come out many times and get as much as they can. And then they pretty much stay quiet during the day and they'll come out more at night. So
Interesting.
anywhere around your kitchen, you just got to look at where those areas are that they're going to either make a nest, go to feed, or congregate. And once you figure out those areas, you can put our product into those. And we have our website. There's just kind of all kinds of resources that help with that. But
All
mice
right.
need, just like us, they're going to need water and they're going to need food and they're going to need, something to make a nest with. So that kind of narrows down where they're going to go in a home to find those things.
Interesting. That's very, I can tell you, I used to be a mechanic
Oh,
and checking air
yeah.
filters and stuff like that.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
been many times that we found nests in the little air filter box
The
where I'm sure
mechanics
the
are
people
some
just
of
parked
our
the car
best.
outside.
They're
Yeah.
some of our best customers and referring because they're like, you got to get this stuff.
Yeah, for storing cars and stuff like that, that was always a little battle, is to make sure that you, when you come back in the spring, that mice haven't chewed up everything. You go to start their
Oh, I know.
1960s hot rod and nothing
Even
happened.
rentals, it happens. You can
Oh,
go and pick up a rental at an airport, and the guy before you, I had it parked in some farm field or something, and or lot. Even the lots out at the airports get overrun with rodents depending on the
oh,
time of the
interesting.
year. Yeah.
Interesting. So tell me, I want to learn more about the growth. So when you first started, you figure out what works, you move to South Carolina. At this point, you have to hire people and you have to train people how to put together stuff. You have to figure
Mhm.
out what kind of bag you're going to use and all the marketing, like what size. Do we make a 3 foot bag? Do we make a 6 inch bag? Like, what do we do? Tell me about that whole process.
So I think of it like being an architect. There's defining, okay, here's all the steps that we need to do to get to the marketplace. Um, and it worked. I think it worked so well for us to get to where we are today, and we're a debt-free company, and we didn't need to give up majority ownership to get capital to do it. So I was always really savvy about making sure that we had good cash flow, and we're still like that today. So that kind of helped define what we could do. And it made it a lot easier because a lot of times the entrepreneur will go out and say, well, what do I need? Well, you need this and this and this and this. And then they'll go out and they get the capital for all of that. They don't necessarily need that. It's better, I think, to start small and to grow and learn. So I took a very phased approach. I like to say, okay, phase one, and we're going to do this, and then phase two is this, and then phase three means, okay, market success. Now we can expand and invest a little bit more in that. And I didn't try to do everything all at once. So the way we grew is by industry. So we started out with farmers' elevators.
All right.
And because they had a big problem with it, and we did implement dealers.
Oh,
I
sure.
went out to my local John Deere and said that was what I did with the first grant money. I applied for some grants and I bought enough supplies to go out to all the implement dealers and say, use this sample. If it works, give me a call and I'll sell it to you. 100% of the time they sold, it worked. And I think we had 300,000 in revenues within a year by doing that.
Nice.
Because they all went, okay, I want to sell this too. I need this too. So what they do is when people would buy a new tractor from them, they'd give them our stuff as a gift and then say, you can get more. It's like the Coke machine, right? Come back when you need another fix. And so then they started selling it in the implement dealers. So that actually took us all the way to national distribution with John Deere. We did the same thing with Tractor Supply. It was sold in the local store. There's like 2,000 of those, right? Whatever. So we started small, and then that they were happy, and then we went to the whole state, and then they were all happy, and then we went to region, and they were happy, and then we went all the way to national. So that's really the approach I took. I didn't do 10 channels all at once.
Okay.
It was more of a systematic, slow growth. So we experienced about 45% annual growth for the first 12 years.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
And it was very consistent, the very, very consistent growth. It started to get sketchy after that because we had a supplier that was misrepresenting. And so I had to self-report them. I self-reported to the EPA that, hey, this might not be what I don't trust these guys, right? And because they made admitted some things, and I'm like, I gotta find a supplier that I trust. Well,
And this
that
was a
happened to,
supplier for a
yeah,
chemical
some of
or
the oils. So this is
okay.
a, yeah, third generation company, large, that farming in their history. Anyway, it was when you're selling a product that's federal regulated, if all the ingredients don't come from the place you say they come from, or if they contain anything other than what's you say they contain, then it's like a violation. It's a fine of, I think it's like six or $7,000 per unit sold.
Oh, wow.
And
That can add
yeah,
up.
we're into the millions of units by this time. So it's like, that is really a problem. So
Yeah.
it was an ethical thing. Anyway, that ended up being the year that Trump came into office and he said, it's going to be Christmas in DC again. But what EPA's interpretation of that was, let's hold all the files until Christmas and let's have Christmas because people will be really happy that we got everything done. So, what should have taken a couple months ended up taking all year long.
Oh, no.
We lost 80% of our revenues that year. I kept people employed, but it almost, broke us. So that
Ouch.
next year we were able to get right back up, but it took a few years to really pick up that growth, and we still haven't recovered that same pace of growth that we did. Because shortly after that, I went to court with them. It was a federal case, jury,
Oh,
the whole
wow.
thing, and ended up prevailing. Thank goodness. But that took some time and energy, of course. Um,
Yeah, nowhere, nobody really wins in court, right? You
exactly. It's
win,
like
but
you
yeah.
try everything to get out of it. Then shortly after that, we have COVID. Shortly after that, you have this huge inflation. Um, but I'm proud to say we just this year we'll have the best year we've ever had.
Oh,
Uh,
congratulations.
we're up, I think, three times what the rest of the market is. We have a leadership team running the company now. I just brought in a CEO to run everything day to day, and I'm going to switch to the strategic chair role. So it's like a perfect mix. It'll help us, I think, stay ahead of the growth because you get to a place in time where it's really hard to do all the strategic planning of working on the business versus working in the business
Oh, yeah.
because we created this market and now there's dozens of competitors. Procter and Gamble came into the space. All the others are doing more, you know, um, earth-friendly, eco-friendly stuff. Everybody has kind of their own twist on it. Um, so it was like, well, I'm either going to have to really, really run and drive myself ragged and crazy or bring somebody in. And so that's what I did.
How do you figure out who to hire as a CEO?
Well, I got so lucky on this one because that is the question, right? Who do I hire? So I got resourceful just like I did growing the company. Because I think every good thing that's happened has come by being resourceful and not being afraid to ask for what I want and ask for other people's, what do you think, right? Well, I called a guy that I've been working with to help me and consult with me and my employees for 12 years.
Okay.
And he originally helped train me for media and hone my pitch. I was like, I needed a really good expert. He was running Tony Robbins companies. He's got a lot of experience in communication skills and presentation, and I'm about as introverted as it gets. So it's like I need that help. Anyway, I called him up and I said, "Hey, I'm going to make a move. I'm going to go back out and do some talking because I really feel that this is the time I want to be out doing podcasts and talking to people and sharing the wisdom of what I know because now everybody's into sustainable business. I've done it. Very few have done it in less than 1% growing a business to this side without compromising on things. So, and he's like, I think I'd be interested. I'm like, you would? And he goes, yeah, call me crazy, but I think I'd be interested. I'm like, you've been a CEO, but he took a company public before. And I said, "Do you know how much work this is?" He goes, "I do. I know, but I really want to do this," because he loved the brand and he's like, There's so much opportunity and it's just a wide open white space globally. And everybody that uses our product loves it, falls in love with it, and stays with it. So, um, yeah, he wasn't cheap.
How recent are we talking here?
5 weeks. We're only 5 weeks in, so
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's just
this is
yesterday. Holy cow.
yeah,
Okay.
this is absolutely brand new. And case in point, in the last 5 weeks, I think he's gotten more done than I have in a year, or probably 2 years.
Wow.
Because he just was able to hit the ground running because we already have a leadership team. You know, we already have huge distribution. We have no problems. We're, other than just, the normal stuff that comes up, we're a top place to work. So our culture is really good. It doesn't get, any better. We're just coming off the best year we've ever had.
Nice.
So he was able then to come in with some extra people that he knows, almost put this whole other layer on the top and hit the ground running. So I'm loving it. Now, in
A
my
little bit of
mind,
freedom doesn't hurt.
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of helps me too because it's like that strong of a leader needs this strong of a counterbalance, right? Where the two of us, I'm the visionary leader, he's that integrator, executor, keep the troops going and like keep the army out there, right?
Yeah, that is impressive. Tell me, as far as the culture of the business, because I know regardless of what kind of company you have, culture is a huge deal. And I have to admit that when I first started my company, not 18 years ago, but it's been a while, I don't even know culture was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea until I met someone that said, what was the name of her book? I think it's Culture Eats Strategy for Lunch or something
Oh,
like that.
okay. Yes.
And I'm like, what? What is that all about? And you're reading it and you're like, ew, that is a thing. That is a thing that I've made some mistakes without even knowing that they were mistakes. So
Mm.
was this one of those things that you knew ahead of time or you learned after you get employees and you have negative culture and
Well,
you're like, oh, we gotta fix this?
yeah, I was fortunate to grow up with a dad that he became a businessman. He left pest control and became a businessman and went into convenience stores. And he was just this most incredible leader. And he was absent for the most part for us growing up because back in that day, your folks worked all the time. And but I saw the success of his company and I saw how much people loved him. And so I started asking him, what do you really do? Because I
Ah,
never saw him working. I'm like, what do you really do? He's like, I just take care of people. I'm like, okay. Well, what else do you do? I'm like, how can you run all these chains of stores and you can't even use a wrench? Because I'm like, he was like, couldn't change a light bulb, right? And I was like, it was just wasn't computing for me. But he had this special way of making things giving people this trust, right? And security and safety. And so people just didn't quit on him. They really trusted him.
wow.
And he was the most humble and down to earth guy that you can imagine. And he was very charismatic too. But I remember seeing him at his gas station and he got really lucky when he got into the gas station business because I'll just tell you this story. So my mother had passed away and he was heartbroken. I was 11, my sister was 9, and he's like, I need a job where I don't have to travel every day because I have kids. So he bought a gas station and he says, girls, I'm going to pump gas and I'm going to wash windows. And of course, we're sitting in Minneapolis. We're used to living in the city and this, condos and everything. And we're like, are you sure? He goes, yeah, we're going to move to North Dakota and we got relatives there and they can help out and I'm going to pump gas. And it's like, I thought, oh my gosh, what is going on? And he was so happy and he was out on the parking lot washing the windows, had this big smile on his face. And he's like, I just love serving people. It just makes me feel, it's the only thing that makes me feel good. Because he was still so heartbroken.
Mm,
And I'm very similar in a lot of ways to that. I'm like, whatever kind of job I do, it makes me feel really good if I'm serving people. And
fair.
I think that has to do with us being a top place to work. And our culture wasn't always as strong as it is now. It's definitely gotten stronger as I've grown as a leader. And a couple of the main things I can tell you, because they say, what is your values, right? Our compassion is a value. But on the flip side of that, there's the pain. And I had to learn to get really good at confronting things. And for somebody that's more of a servant, it's like, that's not fun. You're like, no, no, let's just want it to go
Nothing
away.
to see here, right?
Yeah, maybe it'll just go away if I, sidestep around it. But getting coaching myself and learning how to see that conflict is just simply getting to the truth because you can't have the compassion on one piece and caring deeply without the pain, right? And the
Right.
conflict on the other. So it's kind of a tricky thing to a company because people will start and say, well, you're, a compassionate company and think they're not going to get fired and be on easy street. I'm like, that's not how it works.
No.
We work hard because we care about each other and we want each other to go home safely and we want to have a good family and be leaders in our own families. Um, Excellence is another value that we have. And it's simply, giving it our best and trying our hardest. And we do like 1% better a day. So we're continuous. How do we just get a little better and a little better? And I think that helps us be more profitable. And for 2 years ago, I challenged my team and I said, okay, if we truly are excellent, every one of you should be able to take a month off if you need it, and your team will
Wow.
have your back. And I did it myself. I left last year, I left in December, and I left for a month, and I went to Israel to help the farmers that had been devastated in the war. And I came back, and the team didn't miss a beat.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
And then to our finance lady, she took off for a month, and shortly after, and her team didn't miss a beat. And I said to the plant director of ops, who's a VP now, I'm like, I want you to do the same. And he's like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. But I mean, you have to question your values to that level. Okay, if we are excellent and we are compassionate, we should be able to do this, right? And here's what I found about it. The employees were so excited about this that they could actually see their managers get a much needed break.
Oh,
Because the
interesting.
managers are thinking, well, I need to take care of them. And it's like a servant type thing, right? Well, no, they were like, it wasn't about a promotion to the people under them. Like, well, I'm going to learn how to do it and have their job. It was about knowing that they had their bosses back so they could take a break.
Wow. That is impressive.
So that's kind of, to me, a good way to describe culture and how it is operationalized, within your company. But having those conversations is not something the people want to do. And they're like,
No.
God, Kari, why are you always doing this stuff? And I'm like, well, if we don't talk about this and live this, and then because you get one new person, if they don't fit the culture, they can be the best talent in the world, but you have to let them go and
Hmm.
say, it's in the best interest for all of us. Because I always say it's we. It's not me, it's we. We are a we. And even our brand, it's a combination of everything that we have, inside our walls that makes it go. But I'm totally with you on the whole, yeah, frou-frou, what is culture and all that, because every school, there's so many different philosophies about it, but in the end, I always like to think of it this, you get what you tolerate.
Oh my gosh, that's it right there. That
Hmm.
is totally it. It's the whole kill the monster when it's small. But yeah,
Yeah.
silence is acceptance. Yeah, there we just to give you a little bit of insight as to what I'm dealing with. Call answering service. We're using Slack and we started a channel that I call the F up channel, but its official name is the Boo Boos and Band-Aids channel,
Yeah.
where we essentially
Yeah.
call people
I
out.
got that.
We try to have people when they find a mistake that it gets put in this channel so that we can learn from it, figure out a pattern, see who did it, if they're messing up, if it was one of these things like what can we fix in the process in the system? Was it
Hmm.
just ignorance or was it an oversight or was it something where it's just like, hey, I can see how this mistake got made. Let's change the system to make sure it doesn't happen again. And some people are like, got it, cool. And others are like, oh, this is a tattletale channel. And we
Mm.
get this pushback. And I was like, you got to separate. This is not a personal attack. This is making sure that we are improving as a company. And the only way that we are going to improve as a company is to figure out where we're messing up. If we think that we're perfect right now, we're probably wrong.
Yeah. It's funny, people that aren't used to that level of trust in them, it's really hard on their part to accept that level of responsibility and transparency that they're willing to be brave and say, yeah, it was me. I
Right?
messed up, right? So, I've always found celebrating that with people is helpful, to celebrate the mistakes. Because it's just, have you ever heard of Jocko, how he deals with it?
The
Where,
Jocko Willink guy?
yeah, I love
I've
it.
heard of him, but I don't know this specifically.
He has this philosophy for that. So people will come to him, and he did it in the military way back in his elite team. It was, I got this. And he'd go, good. And they'd be like, and he'd go, good, because we found it. We don't have to repeat this. You're alive. Good. And so having
Right.
that challenge, I've always thought of that, in the back of my head to celebrate it
Yeah,
fiercely,
I
um,
like that. I
celebrate it.
I got this idea, I believe, from Ray Dalio's book Principles, which I've been, man, it was one of those books where I'm like, another business book by some guy that made a bunch of money, so thinks he knows everything. And I'm reading it, and the first part where it's about the personal stuff, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Into the business side, I'm like, oh, this guy's dialed in. I like what's going on here. And he's talking about this mistake thing and how you got to call people out and make sure that it just doesn't get overlooked. Otherwise, like you said, what did you say about tolerance?
Yeah, what you tolerate, you get.
What you tolerate, you get. Yeah, that's perfect. It's perfect.
Hmm.
So there has been, this is a fairly new, I'd say, past 3 months for us. So there's been a little bit of a learning curve, and there's been a little bit of like, hey, nothing was in there yesterday. What are the chances that nobody messed up yesterday?
Well, another one that I always like to tell people is I'd say, okay, 99% of the time, it's a process problem, not a
Mhm.
people problem, a process problem. So when people understand that, it helps too because some people will take things personally, you know.
Oh my gosh. To a fault. To a fault. Yeah, they think like I'm not kicking your grandma. I'm not insulting your
I
mom.
know.
We're just telling you that you transposed a couple numbers on a phone number and that's a really big deal.
Yeah. And the
So,
fact that they're so conscientious is like something to be celebrated, but they have to admit it's hard to admit you're not perfect as a perfectionist, right?
right, right. Very true. Very true. So, Carrie, what do you find in store for your business over the next few years here as you grow?
Well, I'm excited to be able to lean into things like innovative, I call it human experience,
All right.
right? which to me is the funnest part of it. Leading people and building a culture and building jobs, right? Is what are some incredible experiences that really transform people and help them flourish?
Oh,
That is something I'm very excited about, doing that through business. Innovation, of course, I'm an inventor. And so continuing to disrupt,
sure.
disrupt the industry. And I'd love to get on some planes and go overseas as we, continue to grow. And it's just a lot of fun too, doing business with people that you really respect and admire and get to love over the years. I see these people, our customers' businesses is like my business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And,
I get that.
especially when floods happen or hurricanes happen, and it's just like everything stops. Like our people were so heartbroken when the hurricane happened in Asheville, just north of us. It was hard for people, it was like, okay, if you want to go help, we got involved right away. But
Nice.
but we feel like our community really is part of us. It's a different way of being. We don't see them as separate, really.
Yeah, it takes, I mean, you have to have a community in order to have a business. So
Hmm.
that's the give and take there. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's next. I'm going to have, definitely more time. My 70-hour a weeks now are maybe going to look more like 40 or 50.
Whoa,
I
whoa, it's
know.
part-time.
Imagine that.
Oh, that's incredible. Carrie, where can people find you?
So people can Google my name, just Kari Warberg Block, and you can find a lot there. There's in Chat GPT too. That's always fun, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. And
And
EarthKind is one word, is that correct?
yes, earthkind.com. You can find all of our products there, a store locator, a huge library of different resources for you can type in the different pests and we'll help you whether it's with our products or not. We will help you. So we're really good at that.
Very cool. I love it. And it's earthkind.com, is that right?
That's right.
All right, I love it. Carrie,
Yeah,
thank you so
sign
much.
up for our newsletter too because we do discounts and prizes and all kinds of cool stuff for that too. So right on our
Nice.
website, people can sign up. There's webinars and store events and all kinds of cool
Oh,
stuff that we
wow.
do to get out in community.
All right. And where can people find your products locally?
So locally, you can find them at all your Ace Hardwares. You can find them at Tractor Supply. You can find them at John Deere. You can find them at Lowe's. Online, you can get them at Grove Collaborative or Thrive, of course, Amazon. There's our own website.
Wow. All over, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me,
Yeah.
I forgot before I let you go, I'm going to extend this a little bit here because I wanted to ask you about distribution.
Mm,
Tell me a story about distribution from what you used to do, because I imagine you just throw it in the back of your car, deliver. But now that
yeah.
you're nationwide, all these big, huge stores, how do you distribute your product?
So I can tell you probably the best piece of advice for new entrepreneurs. Get to know your customer and get the referral. So I could go in and get to know these store managers and say, what don't I know that I need to know to be successful in distributing to you and to your, chains? And they told me everything. And
Nice.
people don't teach this kind of stuff because it's each industry is different. Because some of them you have to use, LTL. Some of them come and pick up from us. Some of them you have to drop ship. There's about 6 or 7 different ways that we do it. And so they're each its own process. It can get complicated. If there is a screw up in a company, 90% of the time it comes out of logistics. It just is. It can be a real bugger. The truck shows up late. We could get a fine from a retailer, 1,500 a pallet, It's there can be a lot of tense, so you want to make sure you get it done correctly and you label things correctly and There's a lot to distribution.
What? So this fine thing, I've never heard of that. Is that if it's not on time?
hmm Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, the retailers because they book time, they book money, so that they're moving their revenues through. Another thing that's really helpful to people building any kind of a distribution is make sure you have a system that you can attach the file to the customer and that PO and the how to pack and ship travels with that customer file all the way through the system out to shipping.
All right. Interesting.
Most people don't think of that. That's like they go to a separate file cabinet to get it.
Yeah.
But then it's just a check and balance, and then you can always see, where it's at and make sure you're inventorying your system, your inventory properly.
Nice. That is smart. And I imagine there's a little bit of a learning curve and all that.
Yeah, all those little tips you learn along the way, right?
That is cool. Well, Kari, congratulations. 18 years, you said.
Yeah, 18 years.
That is impressive. I mean, that's way over the 5-year bump.
Mm.
So that's
Yeah,
18
yeah, it's way
years.
over the 5-year bump, but we've had a couple little, you know, along
Yeah, it's a
the,
roller coaster.
yeah.
Yeah. 18 years, a cross-country move, a divorce, CEO, cool employees, probably less than cool employees sometimes.
Yeah, two different brands, federal court case, EPA registrations. I served the White House as an advisor for women in business. That was a pretty cool experience. Won
Wow.
awards with SBA, third in the nation. Won award with EY. That was pretty cool. You know, Met some
Dang.
amazing friends and people, and entrepreneurship can be just the wildest ride on the planet for sure.
I gotta say, I love it, and I love interviewing people that have done it, are doing it. It's impressive. Sometimes it's so funny because I chat with people like you, and I'm like, man, I gotta get back to work. I feel like I'm doing well, but then I mean, I haven't gone through any crazy court cases. I certainly haven't been in the White House, so my goodness, well played.
Well, my favorite White House experience was I went bowling. They have a bowling alley in the basement, and
All
I got
right.
competitive and I actually crossed the line. And so they grease it for you so you can't, so they know. And I slipped and I fell. The guys come out, the engineers come out from behind the wall, and they didn't have handcuffs or anything, but they're like, ma'am.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, entrepreneur just coming to push it all the way, man.
That's what we do, right?
Yeah.
Boundaries are meant to be broken here. It's all good. Well, Kari, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm just a real pleasure to talk with you today.
Yeah, likewise. Likewise. This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumph and successes of business owners across the land. My name is James Kademan, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for service businesses across the country on the web at callsoncall.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur in all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. If you're listening or watching this on the web, if you could do us a huge favor, keep the algorithm happy, give it the big old thumbs up, subscribe, and of course, share it with your entrepreneurial friends, especially those that may have a mouse or rodent problem, which, let's just admit, almost everyone is or will have that at one time or another. Mice are everywhere. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Kari Warberg Block, the founder of EarthKind. Kari, can you tell us the website one more time?
EarthKind.com.
It doesn't get easier than that. I love it. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.